Most guns get traded in. You buy one, shoot it for a while, find something newer, something shinier, something with more features on the spec sheet, and the old one disappears into a trade pile at your local gun shop. That is the normal cycle, and the industry counts on it. But some guns never make it to that trade pile. Some guns get bought once and stay in the same safe, on the same belt, in the same family for decades. Not because the owner ran out of options, not because they could not afford something newer, but because the gun they already own refuses to give them any reason to look somewhere else. Those are the guns this video is about. 7 handguns that have been proving themselves for decades in military deployments, in law enforcement service, in competition, and in the daily carry of civilians who long ago stopped looking for something better. 7 designs that survived changing technology, changing markets, and changing generations without losing a single step. These are the forever guns, the ones that generate zero buyer's remorse, zero desire to upgrade, and zero doubt at the moment they are needed most. We are counting down from 7 to 1. By the time we reach number 1, you will understand exactly what separates a genuinely great handgun from everything else the industry is constantly trying to sell you. Let's go. Number 7. Colt 1911. There is a reason John Moses Browning's most famous design has been in continuous production for over a century. The 1911 entered U.S. military service in 1911 and served as the official sidearm of the United States Armed Forces through 2 world wars, Korea, Vietnam, and beyond. That is a service record spanning over 7 decades of active military use in every environment and every combat condition the 20th century produced. No other handgun design on Earth can make that claim. What makes the 1911 a forever gun is not nostalgia. It is the single-action trigger. No production handgun at any price has ever produced a factory trigger that competes with a properly tuned 1911 single-action pull. Short, crisp, and predictable, with zero mechanical slack between the shooter's decision and the shot breaking. That trigger is the reason competitive shooters built entire rulebooks around limiting the 1911's dominance in matches. That trigger is why special operations units still carry customized 1911s, despite having access to every modern platform available today. The honest trade-offs in 2026 are real. 7 rounds of .45 ACP is a capacity limitation that no amount of heritage erases. The platform requires more maintenance attention than modern striker fire designs. Quality varies enormously by manufacturer, but ask a 1911 owner if they have considered switching to a modern pistol and watch their face. The answer tells you everything. Specs, caliber, .45, ACP, capacity 7+1, barrel 5 inches, frame all steel, weight 39 ounces, price $600 to $4,000 depending on manufacturer. The verdict: over 100 years of continuous production, military service across 2 world wars, and a single-action trigger that modern pistols still cannot match. The 1911 earned its place on this list one perfect trigger pull at a time. Number 6. Browning High Power. Springfield S-35. John Moses Browning designed 2 pistols that permanently changed how the world thought about handguns. The first was 1911. The second was the High Power, and it may have been the more influential design of the 2. The High Power was the first 9mm single-action, hammer-fired semi-automatic pistol with a double-stack magazine, and it set an absolute standard in military pistols for everything that followed. It was formally adopted by the Belgian and French military in 1935, and subsequently saw service with armed forces on both sides of World War II simultaneously. Think about what that means. This pistol was so proven, so universally recognized as the best available option that opposing militaries were both carrying it in the same war. That is not a marketing achievement. That is engineering validation at the highest possible order. In 2026, the High Power lives on through the Springfield Armory SA-35, a modernized forged steel evolution that retains the original single-action operation, 15-round capacity, and classic ergonomics while addressing every key shortcoming of the original. It uses a cold hammer-forged 4.7-inch barrel, improved feed ramp geometry for reliable hollow point feeding, an extended thumb safety, and a tuned trigger without the magazine disconnect that ruined the original's trigger feel for decades. In independent testing across over 1,000 rounds of mixed ammunition, the SA-35 ran 993 out of 1,000 rounds cleanly, with the only failures attributable to a vintage 1940s-era magazine rather than the pistol itself. That is near perfection in any testing standard. Specs: caliber 9mm, capacity 15+1, barrel 4.7 inches cold, hammer forged, frame forged steel, weight 32 ounces, price $699. The verdict: 90 years of military service across more countries than any other handgun design. The SA-35 brings that legacy into 2026 with every meaningful flaw of the original corrected. A forever gun in every definition of the word. Number 5. HKUSP. Heckler & Koch built their entire brand identity around one philosophy: no compromises on reliability or precision regardless of cost. The USP is the pistol that proved they meant every word of it. The USP was introduced in 1993 and designed specifically to meet and exceed the most demanding military and law enforcement requirements of any era. It features an O-ring barrel that provides exceptional lockup between barrel and slide, contributing to mechanical accuracy that most competitors simply cannot match. The recoil reduction system absorbs energy through a modified Browning linkless action combined with a polymer buffer in the recoil spring assembly, reducing felt recoil and extending component service life simultaneously. In documented endurance test, the HK-45 built on USP architecture experienced only 2 stoppages over 50,000 rounds. 2 in 50,000 rounds. That number is not a specification. That is a statement about what engineering without compromise actually produces when it meets real-world stress. The USP is available in 15 different variants across multiple calibers and configurations. The same fundamental design served as the basis for the Mark 23 SOCOM pistol, the most extensively tested handgun in United States military history. Shooters who have carried USPs for 20 or 30 years report the same thing. The gun runs dry, wet, dirty, frozen, and baking hot. It does not ask for ideal conditions. It simply functions. Specs: caliber 9mm, .40 S&W, .45 ACP, capacity 15+1 and 9mm, barrel 4.25 inches, frame polymer with steel inserts, weight 28 ounces, price $950 to $1,100. The verdict: 2 stoppages in 50,000 rounds, built to military specification, proven across decades of elite service use. The HKUSP is a forever gun because it was engineered from day one to outlast everything else the market had to offer. Number 4. CZ75. Here is a number worth understanding before anything else about this pistol is said. The CZ75 is one of the most copied handgun designs in the history of firearms. Dozens of manufacturers across multiple countries have produced direct copies or heavily inspired derivatives of this single design. When many experienced engineers and manufacturers look at a pistol and decide that copying it is the fastest path to building something excellent, that is the purest possible form of industry-wide validation. František Kuki's 1975 design made one fundamental decision that separated the CZ75 from everything before it. The slide runs inside the frame rails rather than outside them. That inverted rail system creates a lockup of extraordinary tightness, a cyclic action of exceptional smoothness, and a bore axis so low that muzzle flip becomes almost irrelevant. Combined with an all-steel frame that absorbs the recoil impulse rather than transmitting it to the shooter's hands, the result is a pistol that shoots flatter and more comfortably than almost anything in its caliber class. The ergonomics are what convert people permanently. The grip allows most shooters to close their hands tighter than on competing designs. The beaver tail drives the firing hand high on the frame. The The natural pointability is legendary among shooters who have run multiple platforms across their careers. You pick it up, and it feels like it was shaped specifically for your hand geometry. The CZ75 is in active use by numerous police forces and militaries worldwide. Its mechanical accuracy hijacked the competitive shooting world entirely. And if a platform can survive the brutal round counts of a Grandmaster competition season, it will handle anything a civilian shooter will ever ask of it. The running joke among CZ owners is that the only flaw of the CZ75 is how addictive it becomes. One turns into three. Nobody ever needed another pistol after buying one. That says everything. Specs: caliber 9mm, capacity 16+1, barrel 4.72 inches, frame all steel, weight 35.2 ounces, price $580 to $650. The verdict: the most copied handgun design in history because the original got it so completely right that copying it was the most efficient path available. 50 years of ownership stories all end the same way. Nobody ever needed another. Number 3. Beretta 92 FS. Before a single feature of the 92 FS is discussed, one credential deserves to be stated clearly. This pistol served as the primary sidearm of the United States Armed Forces from 1985 to 2017. 32 consecutive years, through Desert Storm, through Iraq, through Afghanistan, through every major American military deployment across 3 decades, in environments ranging from the scorching sand of the Iraqi desert to freezing mountain elevations where temperatures swing 60 degrees between sunrise and noon. If there was a fatal flaw in this platform, the military trial process would have exposed it within the first 5 years of service. The Beretta served for 32. The open-top slide design is the engineering feature that separates the 92 FS from everything else in its class. The barrel is almost completely exposed when the slide is closed. That is not an aesthetic choice, and it is not an accident. It means spent casings have an enormous amount of open real estate to travel through during ejection. Stovepipe malfunctions are mechanically near impossible on a 92 FS simply by virtue of how much clearance the design provides. The aluminum alloy frame delivers exceptional balance. Running the slide on a well-lubricated 92 FS feels like sliding 2 pieces of polished glass together. The cyclic action is extraordinarily smooth in a way that has remained consistent across decades of production and millions of pistols manufactured. In 2026, Beretta released the 92 GTS, which directly addresses the most common criticism the original 92 FS carried for decades. The slide-mounted safety has been replaced with the twin sear technology frame-mounted decocker system. Frame-mounted decocking levers now allow full manipulation without breaking the firing grip at any point. The most legitimate complaint about the original design has been completely solved. Specs: caliber 9mm, capacity 15+1, barrel 4.9 inches, frame aluminum alloy, weight 34.4 ounces, price $700 to $800. The verdict: 32 years as the official sidearm of the United States Armed Forces. Not luck, not politics. 3 decades of documented operational performance in the harshest military environments on Earth. The 2026 92 GTS finally fixes the one criticism the original carried for years. Number 2. SIG Sauer P226. Here's the story that separates the P226 from every other pistol on this list. In 1984, the United States military conducted the M9 service pistol trials, the most rigorous military handgun selection process ever executed. 2 finalists emerged, the Beretta 92 FS and the SIG P226. Both passed every performance threshold. Both survived every torture test. The Beretta won. Not on reliability, not on accuracy, not on durability, on price. The SIG cost more per unit, and the military chose the cheaper option. The Navy SEALs noticed. They evaluated both pistols independently and quietly purchased the P226 anyway, designating it the Mark 25 and carrying it as their primary sidearm for decades. When the most capable special operations force in the world looks at what the general military selected and goes and buys something else, That decision requires no further explanation. The Legion series with the short reset trigger makes the case even stronger. The double-action first pull is smooth and deliberate. The single-action follow-up break is glass rod crisp, with a reset so short and tactile that it transforms shooting speed entirely. The all-metal frame absorbs the recoil impulse in a way that keeps sights pinned to the target through rapid fire strings that polymer-framed pistols cannot replicate at any price. Shooters who have carried the same P226 for 15 or 20 years and pushed extraordinary round counts through it report never replacing a single extractor or recoil spring. That is not normal mechanical longevity. That is a pistol built to a standard that the market has largely abandoned in the pursuit of reducing manufacturing cost. Specs: caliber 9mm, capacity 15+1, barrel 4.4 inches, frame alloy steel, weight 34 ounces, price $1,100 to $1,399 Legion variants. The verdict: the pistol the U.S. military chose on price and the Navy SEALs rejected that decision for. 20 years of carrying the same example and never replacing a single internal component is a documented reality for thousands of owners worldwide. That is what forever looks like. Number 1. Glock 19 Gen 6. Before anyone reaches for the keyboard, hear this completely. Yes, it is a polymer pistol. Yes, it does not carry the old-world elegance of the CZ75 or the SEAL Team credentials of the P226, or the century-long heritage of the 1911. And yes, in purely aesthetic terms, it is the least visually impressive gun on this entire list. None of that matters when lives are on the line. The Glock 19 does not ask you to admire it. It asks you to rely on it. And the difference between a pistol you admire and a pistol you rely on is the entire difference between a range toy and a defensive tool. The entire pistol consists of approximately 34 individual components. Fewer moving parts means fewer failure points. Fewer failure points means a statistically lower probability of catastrophic mechanical failure precisely when the gun is needed most. That simplicity is not laziness. It's a deliberate engineering genius applied to a single purpose: absolute reliability on demand. The Gen 6, which launched January 20th, 2026, closes every gap that competitors have been exploiting against previous generations. A factory flat face trigger with a cleaner, more consistent break. The new RTF6 grip texture covers a larger portion of the frame than any previous generation. An integrated palm swell that contours naturally to the hand. An enlarged beaver tail for a higher, more consistent grip. A dedicated thumb rest for recoil management. And a native optics mounting system using semi-compressible shims between optic and slide that prevents screw loosening under recoil, solving the fundamental weakness of the old MOS plate system entirely. More than 1,500 law enforcement agencies in over 60 countries have staked their officers' lives on this platform. The United States Secret Service carries it. The FBI carries it. Military units across 4 continents carry it. That institutional trust did not come from advertising. It came from a documented operational record across every climate, every condition, and every stress scenario the real world has ever produced. Is the CZ75 more ergonomically elegant? Yes. Is the P226 built to a higher individual mechanical standard? Arguably. Does the 1911 have a better single-action trigger? Absolutely. But the Glock 19 Gen 6 does everything those guns do well enough, in every condition, every time, in a package that more professional users across more decades have trusted with their lives than any other handgun in history. That is what number 1 looks like. Specs: caliber 9mm, capacity 15+1, barrel 4.02 inches, weight 23.6 ounces, MSRP $745. The verdict: not the most beautiful, not the most refined, not the most prestigious, the most reliable, most proven, and most institutionally trusted compact handgun in the history of modern firearms. The Glock 19 Gen 6 is number 1 because 40 years of global operational proof across 1,500 law enforcement agencies in 60 countries says so. and no preference for more elegant options changes that reality. 7 handguns. 7 different philosophies. 7 different answers to the same question. What does a forever gun actually look like? The 1911 for the shooter who demands the finest single-action trigger ever produced. The SA-35 for the shooter who wants a design trusted by both sides of a world war. The HKU-SP for the shooter who wants engineering built to military specification without compromise. The CZ-75 for the shooter who values ergonomic perfection above everything else. The Beretta 92 FS for the shooter who wants 32 years of United States military validation. The SIG P226 for the shooter who wants what the world's most elite operators chose when nobody was watching. And the Glock 19 Gen 6 for the shooter who wants the most proven and indestructible compact handgun the modern industry has ever produced. Every gun here earned its place through decades of real-world performance in conditions that expose every weakness a design has, and came out the other side without a single complaint. Drop the one from this list that is already in your safe in the comments, and if none of them are, tell us which one you are adding first.